So I suffer from a hormonal problem, a hormonal imbalance basically.
Yeah.
And the condition is called PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome.
Yeah.
And I started my period a bit later than the normal age, I think, which is about 10, 11, 12.
Yeah.
I think I started my period about 14 going to 15.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also, no one had actually ever told me that it's not a normal thing. My partner wanted to have 7 children. We came to a compromise of 5. And even before then, he knew about my hormonal imbalance. None of us thought it was anything serious. So when we started trying, I got 2 miscarriages along the way. But please note, this whole time, no one had put a name to what I was suffering from.
Yeah.
It was just a hormonal imbalance. Yeah. And when we now came to see the gyne, it was still a short time period, maybe about 4 months.
Yeah.
And he recommended a certain tablet, which I took, and the pregnancy happened. Now for this one, took my pregnancy test, and it was okay. Came back for a scan, and then the scan reveals that there is no heartbeat. For me, there are still challenges in there that no one had ever prepared me for. The journey of IVF was not easy. The emotional stress that I went through, the physical stress that it puts you under, it's a lot. There's a lot that no one prepares you for when you're even undertaking these treatments that we do for fertility. It's a burden that doesn't go away. I guess it's really how to look at life from another perspective. The pain that I experienced exposed me to the purpose that God had created me for.
Infertility is defined as not being able to get pregnant or conceive after 1 year or longer of unprotected sex. The reason the 1 year is emphasized is that it is very important that the 1 year mark is hit for you to say that infertility is in the picture, because it could be that you're meeting with your partner, but when you count the times you're meeting, it doesn't total up to a year. So that's why the definition has a 1 year period. Before it's a year, you cannot say that infertility is in place. Or for couples or relationships that have long distance marriages or long distance relationships and just meet once in a while, after a year of not conceiving, you cannot conclude that is infertility, because there is no consistent period of time that you've been together. So for infertility to be called infertility, it has to be a 1 year period of unprotected sex. And today we want to have a candid conversation about infertility and sometimes what happens with it, so that you can learn and maybe subsequently refer this to somebody that you feel could need this form of help. And I have one Phiona who is willing to take us through her journey of infertility and what are some of the lessons that she has learned along the way, so that you can also learn. So please join me as we welcome Phiona. Hi Phiona.
Hi Renee.
How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm fine. Who is Phiona? Briefly.
Oh, Phiona is a Christian who loves God.
Yeah.
And I love charitable work.
Yeah.
I am a wife, a mother, a sister, a daughter.
Yeah.
That's in brief of who Phiona is. And I love my me time.
You love your me time? Your personal time?
My personal time. I love to rest. For example, sleeping.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yes.
So, Phiona, today we want to talk about infertility. Now, there are so many questions about it. And fortunately or unfortunately, many people who go through it don't find it comfortable to talk about it.
Yeah.
Why are you finding it comfortable? Why are you passionate about it?
I'm passionate about infertility because I realize that there are many people out there who are suffering silently.
Yeah.
And this is really because of my personal experience.
Yeah.
And the challenges that I went through, I would not wish on my worst enemy.
Sometimes when you're going through something like this, you want to hear what other people who have gone through it, how it was for them. But sometimes there is no story. Sometimes all there is an expert opinion.
Yes.
And sometimes you feel somebody speaking about it because they're a doctor, because they're a consultant, because they studied it.
Yes.
But they haven't experienced it. So I'm very looking forward to hearing your story, and I'll let you in to take us through. How did everything start?
Well, my experience started from, I guess, way back.
Yeah.
But then I didn't know that it was infertility that I was going to experience when I was ready to have children.
Yeah.
So I suffer from a hormonal problem, a hormonal imbalance basically.
Yeah.
And the condition is called PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome.
Yeah.
And I started my period a bit later than the normal age, I think, which is about 10, 11, 12.
Yeah.
I think I started my period about 14 going to 15.
Yeah.
And even then when I started, it was very irregular. But then I didn't mind.
You
because,
didn't mind?
Yeah, for me, even when I missed a period, I was happy. So it's until secondary school, you start learning more about the sexual reproduction.
Yeah.
But you see also, it's very limited, the information they give us in school. Then when I had finished campus,
Yeah.
I had...
So all that time you had irregular periods?
Very irregular.
Yeah. Irregular, you mean?
Um,
Once in 3 months?
Yeah, sometimes it would go to 4 to 5 months.
Without periods?
Without a period, yes.
Okay.
But it was normal.
Yeah.
And also, no one had actually ever told me that it's not a normal thing. My mom didn't know because I'd never told her. Yes, she bought me pads every time, but...
Sometimes you could take them back.
I don't even know where they would go, but it's not a topic that came up.
Yeah.
And after campus, I had got my first job. I had medical insurance, and I was like, it's time to go, and I do a general check.
Yeah.
You know, you have insurance and you're wondering, how do I spend this money that the company is paying?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I went to do a general check. And one of the questions that the doctor asked me was, of course, they try to do a general health thing, which is about my period then.
Yeah.
So he asked me, is your period consistent? And I mentioned no. So that was a general doctor. He asked me to see a gynecologist, I think, to expound more on why my period was not consistent.
Yeah.
So when I saw that the gyne, he asked me to do some tests.
Yeah.
And the tests indicated a hormonal imbalance. Yeah. And at the time, the gyne just told me, because as a bit young, I was still young, he told me...
Which year was that?
Oof.
Quite long ago.
I finished campus maybe almost 10 to 11 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was about 23, 22.
Yeah.
It's actually more than 10 years ago, yeah. And the doctor just told me it can be resolved whichever way I want. If I want to get my period, they can do that. They can stabilize it. Or if I'm ready to have children, that will also be possible. So when I had that, I went on with life. But he recommended family planning pills because I think they are hormonal and they help to stabilize one's periods, especially us with hormonal imbalances.
Yeah.
And when he gave me these pills, for me, what came to my mind, because I was still staying at home, and what came to my mind was, if my mom lands on these birth control pills in my bag one day, what is she going to think?
Because you weren't active.
No, I wasn't. I mean, I've just left campus.
Yeah.
You're still young, and they've told you to stay away from boys. You know,
Yeah.
Our parents told us until 30, please, don't.
And that's commendable because many times people learn of that when they're already in the marriage.
Yes.
So I think it was very commendable for you to do tests to just know how you're doing.
Where I was standing.
Yeah.
So, but even that information I kept to myself. I didn't go and tell my mom, you know what, I did this and this and this is what I found. No, I just kept it to myself. Why? Because I knew that there's a solution to whichever direction I wanted to take.
Yeah.
And so fast forward, meeting my partner, and you're now having discussions about getting married and having children.
Yeah.
So my partner wanted to have 7 children, and I wanted to have, we came to a compromise of 5.
You wanted 4?
I wanted 2 or 3.
Okay.
Yes. You wanted 7. I was like, you know what, it's okay, we can try and even out.
Do average.
Let's average. So we came to about 5. And then you get into the marriage, and even before then, he knew about my hormonal imbalance. But none of us thought it was anything serious.
Yeah.
And shortly after that, we then started trying. And the pregnancy. Actually, so when you say trying, I got 2 miscarriages along the way.
That was immediately after you got married?
Yes. At first, we didn't think it was anything serious. It's after the second one that my husband... No, actually, I think friends now, you're at the office and friends are asking you, but the man is going to start getting other women to,
I know.
all those conversations that girls have. So one of my friends recommended a guy. He was an elderly gentleman. So I actually went and saw the guy. And he asked me to repeat the tests because now it was a very long time from the time I had done the first ones.
Yeah.
So I repeated my hormonal tests and they came out the same. He mentioned it was a hormonal imbalance. But please note, this whole time no one had put a name to what I was suffering from.
Yeah.
It was just a hormonal imbalance.
Yeah.
And he also told me the same thing. You want a period? We can do that. You want to have children? We can also sort that out. Which he actually did. So I told him I was ready to have kids. And he recommended a certain pill. I don't remember the pills, but it's something that women usually take apparently to bring the eggs closer, and I've heard people talking about it. And he did that, and the pregnancy happened. However, it wasn't a good pregnancy because it turned into something called a blighted ovum. So a blighted ovum is...
Just wait, Fiona. You're taking us at a very high speed. What I need to know is the period between the first, the second miscarriage, and then this time that you're having a third pregnancy.
Okay, so it was after the first one. I think it was a few months, maybe 3 to 4 months.
Yeah.
The other pregnancy happened, which I think also...
Which year are we talking about?
We are now maybe like in 2014.
2014.
Yeah, 2014. And... let me see, 2014. Yeah, it was in 2014, 2015. So then, basically that time period wasn't big between the pregnancies. Yeah, it was maybe like 4 months. And when we now came to see that guy, it was still a short time period, maybe about 4 months.
Yeah.
And he recommended a certain tablet, which I took, and the pregnancy happened. Now, this pregnancy, it seemed like it was now okay because I didn't miscarry. So these other ones, I would really miscarry in them. As soon as you take a pregnancy test, like a few days later, you get your period. That is a kind of miscarriage that I was having before. Now, for this one, took my pregnancy test and it was okay. Came back for a scan, and then the scan reveals that there is no heartbeat.
How many months?
I think this started at about 6 weeks. Now, I kept extending it because when they told me there's no heartbeat. So at this time, remember, this is the third miscarriage.
Yeah.
There's now desperation growing in me. And this is what I really wanted. So when they were telling me that there's no heartbeat, in my deepest part of the heart, I knew that this heartbeat was going to form at some point.
Yeah.
But the doctor knew that if there's no heartbeat, definitely I'm going to have a miscarriage. Like I would bleed a few, maybe weeks. I think a few days. That's what he anticipated. So he told me, you know what, there's no heartbeat, but you'll get your period soon. So what I did was like, you know what, this prophet of doom, I leave. I went to another doctor.
Yeah.
And I just went and I walked in and I told them I did a pregnancy test. It's positive. I've come to do a scan. So they do a scan. So this is, I think, like at 8 weeks now. Because I went back every after 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Until 12 weeks, which is like 3 months.
Yeah.
So 8 weeks I go back, I changed
to
hospital.
Another, yeah.
They tell me the same thing. There's no heartbeat, but you'll see your period soon. Why? Because this is
they were saying the
natural.
fetus?
No, there's no heartbeat. There's nothing in the sac, but the sac was growing yeah. So the sac was growing, but whatever it is that should have been forming was dissolved for some reason. So in their medical experience, the body should be able to eliminate that on its own. Because the body senses that it's not something normal that is...
Yeah, it is strange in the body.
And so they would all just let me know. I mean, they would just let me go. They would just say, it's okay, you'll have your period soon. 10 weeks, changed another hospital. So at 12 weeks, I was like, let me go back to my doctor, to the guy, to see what next. Because all the people who had speculated a period coming, I mean, it's now, time is passing by, so let me find out, what do I do now?
Yeah.
So I went back to him and he was surprised to see me, that I'm still coming for a scan,
because
hoping for some miracle to happen.
Is that what they call denial?
Yes, I was in denial properly.
Yeah.
I just didn't want to accept that. And at this time also, I think my marriage was not... We had started experiencing some... Remember, the marriage is still young.
Yeah.
But there's already cause for you to pull ropes on weird other things.
Yeah.
So I went back to the doctor and I asked him, I've come to us to do a scan. And when he found out that I had not miscarried yet, he told me we need to take this thing out immediately.
Because it can
surgically.
damage you. Yeah.
Because if it bursts in the stomach, it could cause internal bleeding, which could lead to death.
Yeah.
And also because if it was 3 months and it hasn't evacuated on itself, then it was not going to. So yeah, the next day I was taken in for a surgical intervention and they took whatever it is that was there out. I think for me that was the beginning of depression.
Yeah.
And we then gave it a year before we tried again. But my husband had, I think, started consulting a few people, maybe a few of his friends, and had about some friends who had gone to fertility clinics. At that point, yes, I had heard about one particular fertility clinic, but I also knew that they were so expensive. So for me, my mind had even not gone there.
Yeah.
But also because I didn't consider myself in that category of people at that time. It was, it's something you have infertility, but I'm like, no, we've not gone that. We've not reached there.
It's not my story.
It's not that serious yet.
Yeah.
So at this point, I think my husband had realized how stressed I was, depressed, and we are not happy. There's a lot of anguish and trouble that's going on. So he recommended that we actually go to a fertility clinic. And when we went to the fertility clinic, of course, they repeated the same tests, repeated the tests, and they confirmed you have a hormonal imbalance. And it was the first time that they put a name to what I was experiencing. So they explained it to me and they told me, this is what you're experiencing, this is what your body is going through, this is what the PCOS that you're experiencing means, and this is how it exposes you to infertility.
So what you're saying is that fertility hospitals actually helped you?
Yes.
Because normal hospitals don't, because they're not specialized, I think.
Because they're not specialized, yes. And some doctors, many times, because I think we've heard about several people have hormonal imbalances. You get it?
Yeah.
And it's a word that is very loosely thrown around.
And it's so common, like you don't know what exactly that comes with.
Yes. And also the body, we have different hormones. So it could be any hormone in the body that is playing with you. You get it? Because even people with a hormonal imbalance, the hormones that are imbalanced in our bodies are not all the same. So the treatment that I could get could be different from the next person because the hormones that they're trying to balance are different. But the challenge with these other hospitals is there's a hormonal imbalance. They have a shortcut to the solution. And what the first doctor did for me, yes, the pregnancy happened, but there's a lot that was not resolved. Because of my hormonal imbalance and the one that I suffer from, it affects the quality of my eggs.
Oh.
So that is why when the embryo was formed, it was not good quality. So the body rejected it. But they won't tell you all these things. They'll just go to the shortcut of let us try and get these eggs out. But what quality of egg are you bringing out? Yeah. But anyway, when we went to the fertility hospital, they were able to tell me and explain to us what it was that I was going through. And because of the surgical intervention I had to expel the bad pregnancy, it had further caused damage to my tubes. So now I was experiencing two things. Partially blocked tubes with a hormonal imbalance. And for me, they told me that the best way out of what I was going through was to actually do IVF. There are several other procedures that they wanted us to do, which was laparoscopy, try and unblock the tubes, then we try naturally. But because of my PCOS, there was no guarantee that a pregnancy would even happen anytime soon. So, and because of the level where we had reached. So at that point, at that time I was 29. And I knew that I was still young because that is what society has told us. When you're 29, you're still young. You still got it. And the doctor told me you are at the peak of your fertility mountain. When you hit your 30s, your fertility starts declining. So for me, that is when I actually started understanding what fertility is, the relationship between fertility and age, especially in a woman. the society tells us we are still young when we are in our 20s, but medically we are not.
Yeah.
Once you hit your 30s, your fertility starts declining. So because I was 29 going to 30, the doctor told me, if you still want to have children without so much trouble, the best shot is to try IVF, then maybe you can try naturally after.
So that you make good use of the window.
Exactly, that I had. So we went into IVF, and for me, there are still challenges in there that no one had ever prepared me for. The journey of IVF was not easy. One, it came to the financial implications of the IVF that we did, the emotional stress that I went through, the physical stress that it puts you under, the relationship. It's a lot. There's a lot that no one prepares you for when you're even undertaking these treatments that we do for fertility. The pregnancy, luckily my first treatment worked. And as I said, it's a guarantee also. IVF doesn't. So when we were doing the embryo transfer, we actually chose to do 3 embryo transfers, and we got 2. The reason we chose 3 is because they had given us the success rates.
Yeah.
And also because of the PCOS that I experienced, the PCOS affecting the quality of my eggs, there was a chance that maybe the embryos that could come out of them were not so good, and implantation would be hard. So that's why we chose 3 and got 2 out of them.
Now, before we go to the results from the IVF, at the point of getting into IVF and you and your partner accepting to go for it, how were you standing financially? What was the time frame between the time the doctor told you need to consider IVF and to the point that you actually did it? Because usually that's the question. How long? Yeah. How did the money come? Because that's the challenge. Everyone would want to do it if they've waited for long, but usually there's money, there's emotions. So how did you deal with that? What was the time frame? How was the money bit? Yeah.
So I think for me, with my journey, there's been also a lot of luck with it.
Yeah.
And sometimes I believe that God gives us battles that He knows that we can handle.
Yeah.
So I think we were lucky that financially the money was there. So it didn't take us long. Actually, that's why we immediately jumped onto the option of IVF. Why? Yeah. Because if it was the best chance at getting children at that time, we were like, it's okay, let's do it. But I know that it is a challenge for very many people. And the truth is, as much as it affects you, this thing is going to affect your financial status even more. If the money is, even if the money is there, you're going to take out all your savings. Because even us at the time, we had been saving money for other things. People are saving money to buy houses, to travel, and all those things. We had to deplete whatever it is that we are saving to put into the treatments. And with the emotional bit, it was a lot. Why? Because I had to deal with things at the office. Now the treatment required me to go to the hospital, especially when I was on the injection. So there's a time when you receive injections for like 3 weeks. Every day at a certain time. What are those
injections for?
They are hormonal injections. I think those are the ones trying to maybe like grow good quality eggs.
Yeah.
So what IVF is that basically the doctors take control of your body, of your cycle.
Yeah.
So the normal cycle is your cycle starts when you're menstruating.
Yeah.
Then you're going to ovulate at some point.
Yeah.
And then the egg will be released or fertilized. So they take control of that period from when they induce a cycle. They induce menstruation. So as soon as you start your period, they start giving you medication. So that as the egg is growing, it is being fed. It's like they're giving you supplements, basically.
Yeah. To improve its quality. Yeah.
So you'll keep doing scans during that time to also see the size of the egg. Is it growing like at a good speed? Is it, you get it? So they're trying to monitor all these things. Now for me, what that meant is I had to leave office every day for about 3 weeks at midday, because that's the time of the injection. And then you can't explain to your boss where you're going.
Yeah, you can't be telling everybody.
Exactly. Because at that time I wasn't open about the situation that I was going through. I had to find excuses all the time. You get it? Which became very hard.
Yeah.
I had to open up I realized I had to open up, or I was about to lose my job actually, because there's a lot of absenteeism from the office. Remember, because of the hormonal injections also that you're getting, there are times you're going to wake up and it is not that day. You just want to sleep. You don't want to see anyone. And even with the relationship with my husband, you're there going through things and you feel like I am taking this heavy burden. He's not doing much. Yes, and there's nothing much for him to do, by the way.
Yeah.
He tried to be there as much as he could for me while on this journey, but I just didn't feel like it was enough. Why? Because I was also not in a good mental state. I didn't know what I was going through, but I was going through a depression. So I just felt like my husband wasn't doing enough. I'm the one receiving the injections. I'm the one going through all the trouble and stuff like that. And I felt like I was carrying the heavier burden of the treatment, which
is not true.
Yeah, which is not true, because it was affecting him in his own way as well.
Yeah.
But also, you're arguing all the time. The home is not a pleasant place for someone to even come to. You get it? So you're not a pleasant person. I lost friends during those times. Because anyone who asked me about my treatments, but in a pitiful way, I blocked. The only people that I wanted to talk to were talking about other things, like, don't ask me about what I'm going through. Yet at some point it's confusing. So let me talk about, like the relationships in terms of my husband and my friends.
Yeah.
I wanted them to find out how I'm doing, but I don't want them to ask me. It's confusing,
It is, and I think that's how men get stressed with us, because you want him to show care, but you also want him to leave you.
Exactly. So even him as a person who is trying to extend the care, he's confused.
What to do. Yeah.
But even you as a person who is going through it, you don't know what you want.
Yeah.
You don't know how you want the other person to express that they care about you.
Yeah.
So it was a very confusing time for me and very challenging. So anyway, fast forward to when the pregnancy, it was very hard also, because I was on bed rest for about 4 months before I gave birth. Then after giving birth, for me, I also suffered from heart failure. And the children luckily came and they were okay. But
so the two embryos were successful?
Yes, the two embryos were successful.
Yeah. And you got twins?
Yes, I got twins.
At how many months?
At 36 weeks, exactly 36 weeks. But that was a decision that my husband and I made, that we wanted the children out at that time, because I had started experiencing some symptoms that were not okay, though the doctors were saying it's okay. Because my feet were swelling, I was not breathing properly, and they said those are normal pregnancy symptoms, which we had accepted that are normal pregnancy symptoms until I gave birth, and they realized that my heart was actually failing. That is why I was going through these symptoms. But yeah, luckily made out of it, and I think I recovered from the heart failure like a year after giving birth, and that was the birth of the foundation, because I had enough time during this 1 year to reflect and just look at my journey and the things that I've gone through, the challenges that I've faced, the relationship and all those things. And I realized that having the children had not healed what I was going through. It's until, for me, I think it took God slowing my life down with a heart failure for me to realize that He is working something in me. And I knew that there are things that I had gone through, especially emotionally, without any counseling, without any mental health support, that many people out there go through, and they don't get a chance to even talk to someone about it.
Yeah.
But also, while on this journey of treatment, there are several women who had interacted with, and people would tell you stories about their husbands having other children, their in-laws chasing them out of their homes. There are deep things that women were experiencing, but this woman is still holding on. They still come for treatment. Yeah. People are there. People would come and say themselves like they're on their 4th or 5th cycle, because all the other first 4 cycles have failed. And for me, I would look at them and be like, how big is this person's heart?
Yeah.
My heart would not take it. if even my first cycle failed. You know, you look at them, and so even with the failed cycles that they're going through, the financial stress that they're going through, they are selling property, selling pieces of land, selling whatever it is that they can get a hold of to come and do what? Do their treatments. And their husbands are out there
enjoying life,
enjoying, or whatever it is. It's just a lot that I realized we were going through without any kind of help. So for me, it was, I think it was one of the reasons that I decided to start the foundation. And when I was starting the foundation,
before you go to the foundation, now many people don't even know the foundation that you're talking about. Now, Phiona is the director at Rainbow Hearts Foundation. This is a foundation that helps women who are
struggling, actually couples who are struggling with infertility.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so I started it because I realized that there's a gap, information gap, with both the public and even us who are struggling with our infertility. And for me, my main reason of starting it was to even focus on the mental health support.
Yeah.
Depression, stress, anxiety, it's a lot. And you see, people look at, let me say, like, there are several other diseases that people are going to look at, and they think, and they are providing support in terms of mental health counseling. Let me say, like, there's AIDS, HIV and AIDS and what, things that people are focused on to cancel someone out of what they are going through. There are several suicides that I've heard of, which have been, the main cause has been infertility.
Yeah.
We have seen divorces in our community, but the main cause is infertility. And what pains me is that people are going to come up with all other excuses to defend the divorce, but the main cause was the childlessness. There's a time when a friend of mine, this guy was actually a pastor at some church, he had divorced with his wife, and it's until he heard about my story that he actually texted me and told me, you know what, the main reason for my divorce was actually infertility, but we had to mask it with other
Something
issues
else.
Yeah, they couldn't talk about these things. And society has made us believe that you cannot talk about infertility, you can't talk about these issues, you can't talk about your bedroom problems and things like that. But also because they point the finger at the woman, yet sometimes it's the man, because infertility is a disease of both the male and the female reproductive systems. But sometimes you're going to find even the man going out there and cheating on the wife left, right and center, yet trying to sow his seed, yet he's the one who actually has an issue. Yeah, who has an issue.
I hear you, Phiona.
Yeah. Anyway, so I decided that people need to be supported mentally, because it's not an easy thing to talk about with family, even friends. And I realized it's an easier thing to talk to someone who has experienced, who is able to empathize to the level that you actually want them to what? Empathize, yeah. Because I feel like if you've not experienced it, there are things in there that, you're going to look at and you're like, there are several things that people say, wait, it's not God's timing. I don't know, I've had all sorts of comments, And yes, as much as I know that it will only happen if God wills it, I don't need you to remind me. You get it?
Yeah.
Also, people ask you, why aren't you trying out several other options? Have you taken this herbal medicine and this? Have you seen this doctor and that? But people have tried, someone is not going to be there wanting a child and they just sit back.
They've tried literally all they
and
can.
Do nothing. Yes. They've tried to seek all the help that they can. But also, there is a lot of hope that is lost on this journey. And when I realized that it's a lot spiritual, what we go through, but people don't want to accept it, or many people basically just shun the whole faith thing when you feel like you're praying to a God and He's not answering you. For me, I think it was a blessing in disguise, if I should say, because the pain that I experienced exposed me to the purpose that God had created me for. And
which was to help
women who are going through it. Because if I had never experienced, I would never be on this journey. I would not know what someone...
would not relate.
I would not relate. It's not something I had ever thought about.
I understand, because you go through it and you feel like there's no information.
Exactly.
You feel like you should create awareness.
Yes.
That's very commendable. I want us to go just a little back on the procedure. Now, there are many people. There are many ideologies about IVF. There are different procedures different people take. What was yours particularly? How did it cost you, if you don't mind? And what exactly went on there before we got the success bit of it?
So personally, because the issue that I had was the hormones and partially blocked tubes.
Yeah.
So initially, I think if the tubes had not been a problem, the option they would have given me maybe would be insemination.
Yeah.
So insemination, they get the man's sperm and they just try to bring it they use an injection, a medical injection to bring it closer to the egg.
Yeah.
Of course, this is also with trying to support your eggs with fertility medicine.
Yeah.
Now, when there are tubes that are blocked, that means the egg and the sperm cannot meet.
Yes, because there's no passage.
There's no passage. So people with blocked tubes, not in most cases, people with blocked tubes, the only solution is IVF. Why? Because what IVF does is it takes on the role of the tubes. So they will get your egg and they'll get your husband's sperm and they will join them out of the body. They will fertilize the egg out of the body. Then once the embryos have formed, they put them back. So, and also the period that this process takes, let me say so the reason the IVF process is long is really from the time of they're trying to get your eggs ready. That is a long period, which is 3 weeks to a month. But after the eggs are ready and they get them out, it takes 3 days for them to fertilize and they put them back in the body, which is exactly the same period that the egg and the embryo, after the egg and the embryo have met in the body, they take about 3 days to travel in the fallopian tube back to the uterus.
Yeah.
Yes. So they mimic what the body should do outside the body. That's what IVF is. And there's a misconception about IVF, which I also had before I did the treatment, wondering if IVF babies are normal, if my kids are going to be weird, basically.
Weird. Yeah.
Yes. And honestly, it's a misconception, but it's also because of the lack of information that we have in our society.
Yeah.
I didn't know what my children would be like, but because I had no way out, I took the chance at it. And when I learned that it is my egg that they get and my husband's sperm,
it gave you comfort.
It gave me comfort.
Yeah.
But also that it's not like there are additions that they put to this baby or things like that. They'll just get the egg, just the sperm.
I think because it's not natural. Okay, because it didn't come the
normal
natural way.
Yes.
Sometimes
we think
people feel like, where did they put that egg? Where it was? What chemicals did they put in there? What was preserving it?
Exactly.
Is it the same as the fallopian tube? Really? I mean, all those are really
those are all
myths.
Yeah, those are all myths. But the comfort is the babies are as normal as a naturally conceived baby.
Yeah.
And also for me, what I keep telling people, because all my babies are very bright, by the way.
Yeah.
Too bright.
How old are they now?
They are now 4. They're making actually 5 in November.
Wow. Yeah.
Yes, so they're almost 5. And what I tell people is, because this has been done medically, and when they get, because they try to get as many eggs from you as possible, because they want to just give a chance to see. They won't just get 1 egg or 2. They'll get whatever it is that has grown, they will get and they'll fertilize. Now, when they are choosing which embryos to put back, they will actually look for the best. And how do they choose these embryos? Okay, medically, the embryo has multiplied in cells, and the one which has multiplied faster is the best quality.
Phiona, you speak like a doctor. You're not speaking like a doctor.
Yes, but because, oh my God, I have studied this. Okay, not studied, but
you went through it.
I went through it. And what I like telling people is, when you're going through these experiences, ask as many questions. Because you see, sometimes when we are patients, we assume that the doctor knows it all and is going to make all the decisions for us. Yes, no. What I tell people is ask. If they tell you you need to do this, ask them why. If they tell you you have PCOS, what is the cause? You get it?
Yeah.
Because for me, I wanted to know what caused my PCOS, what caused my hormonal imbalance.
Yeah.
Is it something I did? Was it lifestyle? Was it something I ate? And all those things. Now, there are some causes of infertility which are preventable.
Yeah.
Let me say like abortions. So for me, when I did that medical procedure to remove that bad pregnancy, one of the things or where my heart is heavier at is even like with the youth. I mean, when you're on campus, you're doing all kinds of things. I've seen or heard even about people who keep aborting. They won't have repercussions then, but one day, because I've also had in the medical fields, there are people who have gotten married and they have failed to have children. And the doctors will look for a cause of your infertility, and it's almost unexplained. There's a particular case, this lady had traveled all countries because she had the money. They couldn't find the cause. Then a particular doctor, I think it was in Germany or what, and this lady is actually Ugandan, found a small bit of like a bone particle that had embedded in her uterus. This lady had an abortion when she was like still young. So something remained in her uterus, and that was the cause of her infertility. Nothing could implant in that uterus because it wasn't a conducive environment for her.
There was something strange.
Yeah, there's something strange there. So there are several things that happen, and some of them are avoidable if people have the information as to what is actually causing it. Then some of them are natural things, like because there's no particular cause of the hormonal imbalance. However, sometimes lifestyle change can help to maybe like reduce your effects, because there are some people who are like overweight, which causes your hormonal imbalance. And when you see a doctor, for me the reason I say you need to ask questions and even you research as a person, like as a patient, do a lot of research. Why? Because there are someone else could have PCOS, but their solution is lose weight and they get pregnant. Someone else could have PCOS and their solution is totally different. You have to take medication, you have to probably do surgery and things like that. So there are some things that can be resolved very easily. Then there are some things that have to go to the extreme.
I hear you. So how was the aftermath? After you've gotten your babies, how has that been for you?
It's been mostly
these
joy.
5 years.
The 5 years have been good. I mean, they are good kids, and it does not take away from the fact that I wanted 5 kids. And what I keep telling people is that God has put a desire in us to be parents, whether a mother or a father, and that desire doesn't go. So even with the 2 children that I have, I still feel the heavy burden of the failure to conceive again. Why? Because I still ask God the same things. Why? And sometimes for me, I think I relate it a lot to the work that I'm doing with the foundation, because I feel I tell God I am obeying what you're asking me to do. Why can't you bless me and just heal my body? You get it? It's a burden that doesn't go away. I guess it's really how to look at life from another perspective.
Many times when people conceive and then they are not getting the second pregnancy or second child, I've heard that sometimes it's worse than the first time you were ever waiting, just because here you've already tasted the goodness of having your own baby and you just can't get another. How is that according to you? How do you relate both experiences?
Okay, I'm going to try and answer it, not from my experience, but from the point of, let me say, like someone who has had a child naturally.
Yeah. Because
there's infertility is both primary and secondary. So secondary infertility is when someone has had a child, some kids naturally, and then the pregnancies start failing. So there are people who would say, or even me, there are times when I would say, at least you have a child, so you shouldn't feel as bad as someone who doesn't have at all. You get it? And the truth is pain is pain.
And sometimes people use that to counsel that at least you have
and I have had people tell me that at least you have your boys. And I tell them, it does not change how I feel, whether I have the boys or not. So what infertility does is, to people is it makes you feel like a failure. So for me, that part of knowing that my body is failing to do what it should do, especially because the community has told a woman that your role is to what?
To give birth.
The body is failing to do what it should do. That sense of failure does not go away. Because I keep trying, and now I am even more active about the trying. But it doesn't happen. So honestly, I think people should stop judging or weighing people's pain. So whether someone has a child or not, the pain that they experience cannot be explained.
Yeah.
And their pain is their pain. You get it? How they feel should not be disqualified because they have a child. So for me, because I have the 2 children, yes, I am extremely blessed that I have those boys. But it didn't take away the desire
to have other children.
Yes.
How have you handled infertility in the public eye? How have you handled it? How have you handled criticism? How have you handled questions that come from family members, from parents, from friends? How has that been for you?
Now, mine has not been so hard. Why? Because I also come from a family that, for lack of a better word, minds their business. My husband comes from a family that minds their business. So even before we had children, no one had ever come and asked us, what are you guys waiting for? Or have you tried ABCD?
Yeah.
I think the first time my in-laws found out about my fertility issues is when I went public with my story.
Yeah.
That's when they actually found out that we were having challenges. But before that,
they didn't know.
Maybe they suspected, maybe they knew, but no one had ever asked us. But I've also had people, there's a time when I was on treatment, actually the time when I was doing my IVF. Because IVF has several side effects, it made me look pregnant because your stomach is bloated basically. There's someone who came and told me, Kongs, I bumped into like an old-time friend who told me Kongs, and I was in the midst of all this pain that I was going through. I literally got back to my car and broke down. And those are some of the things that people go through every day. You'll meet someone, you look bloated because you're probably on medication, or you've just had, and sometimes people ask you, what are you waiting for when you've just had a miscarriage?
Yeah.
Like there are so many insensitive things that people say or ask, and sometimes it's really out of ignorance.
I mean, people don't know any better, and sometimes some are just actually well-wishers. I mean, like they're well-meaning people, especially friends.
Yes.
But there are those who are also not, they don't even have the capacity in your life to ask.
Exactly.
But they still go on.
And what I tell people is, I think if you want to ask someone about their fertility story, I think first gauge the level of the relationship. Because I don't think people are going to welcome questions from just any friend.
Yeah.
And also, because you don't know where this person is coming from, someone could just be asking because they want to know that, oh, you're still failing at this, And yet, someone else could be asking from a good place.
Yeah.
But generally, what I advise people is, if you don't have to ask, then don't ask. Unless the person actually volunteers the information. That's when you can actually start feeling free to give some kind of advice or even asking.
Or even advise or
but
recommend.
But if the person has not volunteered the information to you, then it's very, very painful for someone to come and ask you because they don't know what you have just gone through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. So, Fiona, in all the experience, what has been your biggest turning point?
So for me, the turning point was when I realized that having the children was not going to fulfill me. And I think I mentioned earlier that having the children did not take away how I felt. I had to go through a lot of self-discovery and a lot of committing my life to Christ, that I learned who I truly was. And then I knew that all these things that I want, all the hopes that I have, should be in Him, should be in God. And for me, I think it's really when I started understanding or growing my relationship with God. For me, that was the turning point, because I started looking at it from a different perspective. That's why I said there's purpose in my pain. And when you learn that God does not waste His pain on you, then you'll start looking at it differently. There are people who are put on certain journeys because you're supposed to help someone else on the same journey.
Like the way you're doing.
Yes. It's not a comfortable situation to go through.
Yeah.
But Jesus did not have to die on that cross, but He had to. That was His purpose.
Yeah.
To save to
The
save
world.
us. Exactly. So sometimes the pain that you're going to, the purpose that God has prepared for you has to take you through some hardships. And for me, really, that was a turning point. Self-discovery and realizing that I was not going to get any fulfillment from whether it was my marriage, whether it was my children. It was, and once I turned my life around to Christ, everything else started falling in place. And the reason I say that is because the peace that I have now, and so my fertility journey did not end at, let me say, like just my PCOS and the partially blocked tubes. So I mentioned that I went through heart failure. Because of the heart failure that I suffered from, the doctors have told me I cannot have other biological children, or I cannot carry a pregnancy again, because the body will not be able to handle it. So if I want to have other children, I have to use a surrogate. And it's a painful thing to even think about. So sometimes I try not to I decide to block it out. But it has not given me stress. But I only believe it's because of the Holy Spirit. He has kept my mind at peace. So I don't think about it because I have moved on with life. I'm like, you know what? If God wills it, it will happen.
One of the key things that I just pick from what you've said is finding purpose through pain. That's key. If somebody asked you, what was your biggest turning point? Someone would easily think that having the children would take away that pain. But hearing your story and hearing how you're sharing that it actually didn't fulfill you, it is something I think we just need to learn.
Yes.
Because sometimes when something is not coming, the children are not coming, the marriage is not coming, the job is not coming, you feel like that is the gap.
Yes.
If it is filled like this, my life would be okay.
Yes.
But it comes and there's still a gap.
And there's still a gap, yes. And I think the reason why that gap is created is because, so you see, there's going to be a drift.
Yeah.
Challenges are either going to draw you closer to God or draw you further away from God.
Yeah.
And for many of us, unfortunately, the challenges are going to draw us away from Him.
Yeah.
And as soon as we create that drift between us and Him, we are giving access to the devil.
True.
And what does this devil do? He's going to affect all the other aspects of your life.
Yeah.
So he's going to come and try and destroy your marriage as well. So the challenge that you're having is infertility. You're going to give him access. He's going to come and try and destroy your relationships with friends, relationships with your family. Your job is probably it's going to be at risk. Your marriage is going to start crumbling.
Because your focus is on that thing that is not...
You have now focused on that thing. And when, for me, I really... my story is painful, but my story is beautiful.
It is.
And I cannot trade it for anything. Why? I have seen God work in my, when they say I have seen the goodness of God, it's what I've experienced. because he has made me a totally different person. He has turned my husband like 360 degrees. You know, when you're going through these things, sometimes you don't see the beauty or the blessings that are hidden in the beauty or in whatever it is that is there.
Yeah.
But when we are going through the challenges, one, the financial provision was there. I didn't look at it as a blessing at that time. Two, my husband did not go and start having kids out there. I did not look at it as a blessing at the time. My family was, yes, supportive. As much as they didn't ask questions, maybe they knew. Even my parents, my family knew. My husband's family maybe didn't know. But those who knew were supportive.
Yeah.
Not everyone is that way. I was even lucky to, let me say like that, my in-laws don't have to ask me or ask my husband or try and get him another wife to have children.
Yeah.
You get it?
Yeah.
Which several other people are doing. And those are all blessings that God had put around me. I was lucky that my cycle, the first one that I did with the PCOS that I have, because
it was
successful. And the doctors keep telling me that they don't like dealing with PCOS patients. Why? The success rates are very low. It's your third or fourth cycle that is probably going to work.
You didn't tell us how much it costed you, by the way.
So I paid 22 million. That was then. That was in 2018. That was in
5 years
2018.
ago, yeah.
Yeah. So right now, definitely the things have changed. We all see the economy, and this one I know because I know that even that hospitals have changed. The medicines, have not stayed the same price that they use. So even the prices at the hospitals have changed. But the medication really the treatments, if it goes to IVF, because IVF is almost at the extreme. So there are more extremes which are like surrogacy. Surrogacy goes to maybe even about like 60 million. 60 to 100 depending on the hospital. There are things like donations where someone has no eggs of their own and they have to use donor eggs. Or there's even conditions where the man has no sperm and they have to use donor sperm. Those also cost a bit more than just the IVF. So the IVF,
and then there's also uncertainty after putting in 100 million.
A lot of it. There is no guarantee. And what I tell people is the reason why we cannot run away from God at any point is because the IVF that you do, He wills it to actually work.
That's true.
Because if He's not in it, you will do as many cycles as you want and you'll never get a pregnancy out of it. You will use as many surrogates.
Who gives children.
He gives children. Whether it's going to be through medical interventions or naturally. Yeah. He is the one who has given you those children. And I think that's also the other misconception is around the treatments. Yeah. There are some people who believe, treatments, you're creating children and all those things. But I tell people that God has given us wisdom.
True.
He has given these doctors wisdom. Why is it okay for someone to get a kidney transplant? Because you would. That's someone else's kidney. God, it's not your natural. You get it? Why is it okay for someone to get a heart transplant? Or they put pacemakers in your body. They are supporting, basically the doctors are supporting your life. We could say that the doctors are giving life, but they are not. They are using the wisdom that God has given to help the body function.
True.
This whole taboo about the reproductive system, people look at it and they think, if you're going into IVFs and what, you're going against the law of...
No, what do you say to people who are believing God for natural pregnancy and they've made up their minds not to go for IVF because they believe it's not God's will? They strictly want to get children naturally.
When it comes to things of faith, sometimes... So I don't discourage people who wait on God because personally I am waiting on God. I think it's to wait on God wisely also because scripture also says faith without works is dead. And we know that for God's miracles to happen, God's miracles don't happen with
nothing, no action.
Exactly.
He tells you go and lay hands on the sick.
God uses man
to do miracles,
to perform his miracles.
Yeah.
So if I am not involved in helping this miracle happen, how is it going to happen? That's how I look at it. It is very, very okay. I am a born-again Christian and I believe on waiting on God.
Yeah.
But wait on God wisely. So as I do, even as I take the medicines, I don't idolize medicine. I pray that God uses that medicine to heal me. When I'm going for when I was doing my treatments, I will not lie that I was even praying or anything. Then my faith was dead. Now I know better. And because I'm still on the journey and I still want more children and I'm still believing on God, whatever it is that I decide to do, I pray that God uses the medicine to heal me, to help me get children.
Wow. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Phiona. What would you tell a woman who is in waiting period right now?
To believe and to not lose hope, because there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And the truth is, the waiting season is hard and it's long and it's lonely and it's painful. It's unbearable, but there is a promise. You get?
That's the key word. That's the key word. There's a promise.
What I tell people is that we serve the same God of yesterday, today, and forever. So he did it for all these women in the Bible. We've seen him perform miracles before. He will do it again. And he will do it in your life. Yeah. And he will,
you'll carry your own children.
You'll carry your own children. It's not something it's not impossible in God's eyes, by the way.
It's not. Yeah. I agree.
It's not. To the human eye, it could seem impossible. But while you're in your waiting, it's just to believe that there's a promise. And God is not like man.
That promise.
He does not change his mind. He does not go back on his promises, and he will fulfill those promises in your life.
Amen. Say amen. Thank you so much, Phiona. So briefly, I want you to talk about your foundation and what it does. And if there is a woman who wants to reach out, how basically can they reach out for any further assistance?
Support. So the organization is called Rainbow Hearts Foundation. Most of our social media platforms are RHF. And we create awareness. So we have awareness campaigns. Then we also provide mental health support, psychosocial support basically. And this is through either peer-led, peer-led support or professional support. Peer-led is really people like me who are not professionals who try and counsel others who are going through the same situation. Sometimes we bring on counselors who also go into the counseling. And we have basically the support groups. We also have prayer because for us prayer is really key.
Yeah,
it's a Christian founded foundation, so prayer is key to us. So we have things like prayer, we have meetings where we just interact, and sometimes I tell the ladies that we need to think about things outside our problems.
Yeah.
So sometimes we just meet to
get
have
a breath
fun.
Of life.
Yes, to just enjoy. I know that there are women out here who have my back because they know what I am going through.
Yeah.
Then the other thing is to create access to medical interventions, and this is because sometimes we don't know the right hospitals to go to. We waste time with general doctors. And what this does is the doctor will not tell you that I cannot help you. Why? Because it's a business to him.
Yeah.
He'll keep giving you medicine, you'll keep paying consultation, and sometimes by the time you get to the right hospital, they will tell you that your eggs are not viable anymore. So as women especially, we need to remember that our bodies are on a ticking clock. The longer we wait is the further our dream also goes away. So we try to lead people to the right hospitals, and where we can, we try and get them discounts because we know that these treatments are really expensive. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much, Phiona. And what I get from what you people do is that you help women find assistance in form of getting the right facilities, getting the right doctors for fertility.
Yes.
Because the thing is that sometimes main hospitals will keep treating you, telling you it's hormonal imbalance, telling you your tubes are blocked, but they are not defining it.
Yes.
So it's important that you get the right doctor. It's important that you get the right hospital, and that is what Rainbow Hearts Foundation is about. They help you connect. They help you get that assistance. But also, given that they're in partnership with many of these hospitals, you get to have some of these services at a subsidized fee. So please, if you would want to get help of sort and you don't have a specialized doctor who is working with you, please reach out. We can, send an email on that email on your screen, and then we'll connect you to Phiona and the foundation, and you get help. We really trust that the many women you reach out to will be helped. We want to hear your stories of other children.
Yes.
I'll invite you again to tell us your testimony of your second pregnancy.
Amen.
Children. We will have her, and I'm very sure that will be soon, Phiona. Information is availed for you to choose what to do, to make informed decisions. Yeah, all these are medically proved things, and you can also now get a doctor and have further discussions. You can get a fertility center, go and ask questions in case you feel like maybe something wasn't answered well, or if you feel we should follow this conversation with another episode on a particular topic. Just go in our comment section and put it down. Share what you feel we could have left out that we should discuss, and we'll be glad to have Phiona back to talk about it and to shed more light. If there is anything you feel that that we need to talk about more, just share. But if this is a conversation that you can relate with, still go in our comment section and comment. Make sure you leave a comment, because that's how we know that this content is helpful for you. Okay, so till next time, bye bye.